I hope you guys aren't all Guda'd out by this rerun because we still have a lot of Guda Guda left to discuss. Hello everyone, Sober Oni of G&Day Reviews here, this time with a servant spotlight for Caudia's crazy, classy, and cute couple, Sakamoto Ryouma and Audio. We'll be examining their stats and skills as well as comparing them to how they stack up to the other 4-star servants. And quick reminder for those of you who haven't seen it already, I do have a spotlight out for Okita Alter as well. It'll be linked both in the description down below and in the iCard in the right hand corner, so please do check it out if you haven't seen it. But for now, onto Ryouma's stats. Ryouma has a max HP of 11,880 and a max attack of 8,555. As far as 4-star riders go, his HP is fairly high, ranking behind only Marie and Martha. His attack stat, however, is very low for his class. Outside of the rider class, Ryouma sports a higher HP stat than most other 4-star servants, but his attack remains among the lowest. Ryouma has the typical support tank stat spread, which heavily favors HP over damage. Taking a look at his skills, Ryouma's first skill is Charisma rank C+. It increases the attack of all allies for 3 turns, between 8.5% and 17%, depending on level. His second skill is 8 Proposals while Shipboard, rank A. It increases the NP gauge of all allies by 10%, and also increases their debuff resist for 3 turns, between 10 and 20%, depending on level. And finally, his last skill is Hero of Restoration rank A, which increases the arch card effectiveness of all allies for 3 turns, between 10 and 20%, and also generates between 5 and 15 crit stars, both depending on level. For passives, Ryouma has Magic Resistance rank C, which increases his debuff resist by 15%, Riding rank A+, which increases his quick card effectiveness by 11%, and Divinity rank B-, which applies damage plus 170 to all of his attacks. As for his deck and Noble Phantasm, Ryouma has a Buster Arts deck with Quick Arts Buster and an Arts Noble Phantasm. His Noble Phantasm is Amakakeru Ryuga Gotoku, which deals significant damage to a single enemy with between a 900 and 1500% damage modifier depending on level, and it also has between a 60 and 100% chance to decrease their NP charge by 1 depending on overcharge. Taking a closer look at his cards, we see that his quick card hits 4 times, his arts hits 3 times, his buster hits 4 times, and his extra attack hits 6 times. He has an NP gain rate of 0.56% and a star rate of 9%. Ryouma has very good NP gain despite the low NP gain rate, mostly due to his high hit counts and his skills. And likewise, he does have good star generating from the high hit count quick and extra cards. As for Ryouma's Ascension material requirements, as a welfare servant, Ryouma's Ascension materials are very easy to obtain just by completing the Guda Guda 3 event, so ascending him should be no issue even for newer players. When it comes to his skills, Ryouma mostly requires a ton of bullets. He needs 36 per skill, along with 20 Magatamas. Some bullets can be purchased from the event shop when Ryouma releases, but your best bet for farming them will be at the Yaga Smolensk free quest in Lost Belt 1. They have a 66% drop rate there, while you can get Magatamas at the Castletown free quest in Shimosa, where they have a 40% drop rate. Sakamoto and Audio are more than just a cute couple with amazing animations. Although, seriously, look at these attack animations, they're somehow both adorable and badass at the same time. But beyond that, Ryouma also happens to be a surprisingly good servant, which isn't immediately apparent from his stats. On paper, while he does have a high HP stat, his attack is awful and his NP gain rate is mediocre at best. But much like is the case with our last welfare, Sieg, Ryouma is a totally different animal when he's actually out on the field, and that's due in large part to a really solid skill set. Hero of Restoration is chief among Ryouma's skills. It gives the entire team a 20% buff to arch card effectiveness, and it generates 15 crit stars. This skill may not seem like a lot, but keep in mind that the arts buff not only buffs damage, but NP gain for the whole team as well. And because the skill has such a short cooldown, it can remain active semi-permanently, which is invaluable in helping Arts teams NP spam consistently. Not to mention that as a rider, Ryouma has incredibly high star weight and can easily get a free crit off of the stars that he generates with this skill. This combo of good, high uptime Arts buff and the ability to easily set himself up for crits makes Ryouma's NP gain insanely good. And while on the subject of NP spamming, Ryouma also has a second skill, 8 proposals while shipboard. It's a straight up 10% NP charge for the team. Now, while team-wide NP charge is one of the best skills for a servant to have, just ask Waver, 10% is very low on its own. However, the cooldown is, again, very low, so you can get multiple uses out of this in a single battle, and when combined with Hero Restoration, it does provide enough juice to really fuel most Arts teams' NP engine, easily putting Ryouma on par with other excellent Noble Phantasm battery servants like Helena. This skill also increases team debuff resist, which can be helpful for some tougher boss fights, but it's mostly just an extra niche benefit. And finally, Ryouma has Charisma as well. Unfortunately, it's only rank C, so only a 17% attack buff, but never underestimate Charisma. It does wonders for improving a team's overall DPS in longer fights. And the cooldown is very short, so it remains active for a long time. And when paired with Hero of Restoration, it's basically a 40% damage buff for the entire team on an Arts team. For skill leveling, make sure that you level up Hero Restoration first, because it is by far Ryouma's best and most impactful skill, followed by Charisma for a little extra DPS, and then 8 proposals last, because the NP charge doesn't scale with level. Ryouma's Noble Phantasm is a single target Arts nuke that also has a small chance to decrease an enemy's NP charge by 1 level. Much like the rest of his kit, Ryouma's NP is simple but deceptively powerful. It's basically the same as Emiya Assassin's and Archer Artoria's in that it provides large damage and one of the best pieces of utility in the game, that being NP drain. And while the chances of activating the drain are low, Ryouma's strong NP gain does enable him to spam out his Noble Phantasm, which gives him a lot of chances. Ryouma is living proof that you don't really need a complex kit with lots of special skills to be an effective and well-designed servant. While each of his skills is simplistic and maybe even a little underpowered on their own, they have incredible synergy when used together, and they provide tremendous buffs to not only Ryouma himself, but the entire team. Because all of his skills are party-wide and have such a high uptime, he works very well as a semi-support on Arts teams, where he can buff the entire team's damage and NP gain considerably, and even provide some decent star generating and utility with his Noble Phantasm, very much like a miniature version of Caster Guild, who coincidentally shares an almost identical skill set just with slightly larger numbers. But Ryouma is not just a support, he is also quite the damage dealer too. As I mentioned, his great NP gain and star weight make NP spamming and looping very easy for him in the right team comps. And as a servant that you will likely have at NP 5, his Noble Phantasm damage is no joke, despite his low attack. His face cards are also quite strong as well, again, due in large part to having 2 high uptime damage steroids. And as a rider with good star generating, he can also easily be made into a crit servant to further improve upon his DPS. So whether you need buffing, an NP battery, or damage, Ryouma can provide plenty of it without missing a beat. In fact, the only area that Ryouma does struggle in is survivability. He unfortunately has no defensive skills whatsoever, which makes him very susceptible to enemy crits and Noble Phantasms, which can melt him. He is also perhaps a victim of his own class, as he does share the class with Kintoki Rider, the other 4-star welfare rider, who is probably the most broken welfare servant we ever got, and he easily overshadows Ryouma in terms of both damage and his NP spam. So if you do have Kintoki Rider, as many do, your mileage with Ryouma may vary. Team comp for Ryouma is very straightforward: arts, arts, and more arts. Generally speaking, he works very well with every art servant since his skill set is so wide-ranging. But if you do want to get the most out of him, then I suggest pairing him with art servants who can also provide good NP gain and arts buffs so that he can better spam out his Noble Phantasm. Supports like Nero Bride, Tamamo, and Paracelsus. Nero Bride provides both a strong attack buff and an NP gain buff, which is going to later be upgraded into an NP charge. While Tamamo's arts buff and NP charge can easily set up Ryouma to spam out his Noble Phantasm, and her cooldown reduction makes all of Ryouma's buffs nearly permanent. Similarly, Paracelsus's arts and NP gain buff is crucial to any NP looping strategies. You can also use Ryouma in more crit-oriented teams with supports who can provide him with more crit stars or crit buffs, like Caster Gil, Mozart, or Chiron. Caster Gil works perfectly with Ryouma as he provides a similar set of buffs, and he can also drastically improve Ryouma's star generating to make him a more self-sufficient crit machine. Mozart also does this with his Star Bomb skill, which can guarantee a crit exactly when you need it. If star generating isn't an issue for you, then Chiron is a great choice as his crit damage buff is incredibly strong on Ryouma, and he can also improve his NP gain. Ryouma's Bondcraft Essence is incident on a certain mountain. It increases the party's arts card effectiveness and NP strength by 10%. This is pretty good if you're using him as more of a support, but otherwise I recommend using craft essences that are going to buff your arts card effectiveness or your NP gain, like Formal Craft, Dive to Blue, Collide Sapphire, and Faithful Companions, all of which will help you with spamming out your Noble Phantasm. If crit damage is more your thing, then I recommend using craft essences that can increase your critical damage, like Another Ending, Castle of the Sun, or Gem Magecraft. And finally, in the future, you should be on the lookout for Painting Summer, which does come out this summer, and it buffs your NP gain and your arts card effectiveness, making it perfect for any NP spam focused servants. Overall, Ryouma is an excellent offensive support hybrid servant for arts teams. He provides invaluable low cooldown damage and NP gain buffs to the entire team. He works well as an NP battery for enabling farming and looping arts teams, and he even functions as a very solid DPS capable of both good crit damage and NP spam for tougher boss fights. His only real weaknesses are his own lack of defenses and the fact that Kintoki Rider can overshadow him as an offensive option that most players already have. But all that said, Ryouma deserves an A from me. Don't overlook him. He definitely deserves more credit than what he gets. If you don't have a top tier art support like Tamamo or Caster Gil, then he can work wonders for your arts team. And even if you do have a Tamamo or Caster Gil, then Ryouma can shine as a great arts attacker, much like Archer Arturia. And those are my thoughts on Ryouma. He's pretty underrated in my opinion, and I was just surprised by how good he was when I was playtesting with him. And plus, Oreo is cute as fuck and she deserves more love. Summer Oreo when. But in any case, I want to know what you all think, so let me know in the comments down below. And if you haven't already, do check out the Okita Ultra Spotlight I put up earlier as well. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like and consider subscribing if you really enjoyed the video. Join the party over at our Discord, chill with us on Twitch, and follow us on Twitter. And I will see you all in the next Servant Spotlight. So Brony out. Later.